It's the On Stage podcast with Chris Ruppert. Hello, welcome everyone to an On Stage podcast. We have a wonderful guest today to tell you that it's actually pretty awesome because we have our very first dance choreographer on. And I'm very pleased. And her name is Allison Elizabeth Burns, and she's a compassionate performing arts professional with a strong commitment to public arrangement in engagement in dance. And she is a choreographer, performer, educator, producer based in Ottawa, Ontario. So she's another Canadian. I'm so pleased to see her. So here she is, Allison Burns. Hello, Allison. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thanks for having me today.
You're very welcome. So nice to see you.
You too.
Yeah, you were cutting it close there.
I had to ship the baby off.
Oh,
Papa.
is it a different time difference down there? Like, just kidding. Well, I have my dancing uniform on, my dancing shoes. Okay, they're rabbit slippers. But anyway, and so we have a lot to talk about dance. I love the background. Wow, that's awesome.
Thank you. Our little home office here.
Oh my, wow, that's excellent. I can't wait to change it, my background there. And that is not a virtual background, that is my real background.
Yeah, I could tell by the kitty cat.
Oh, right. Okay, never mind. Well, got a little bit of an image of yourself dancing in the bottom there.
Yeah, I love it.
Wearing
Wearing the same shade today.
Yeah, I mean, like, hey, where's your ballet uniform? I don't.
Right. So
I'm just
we're gonna
kidding.
do a demo. Do I need a tutu?
Yeah. So, thank you very much for being our guest today on the On Stage podcast, and you're our very first dance choreographer. So I'm happy that future choreographers will probably have to watch your podcast to see how it's all done.
I love being the token dance artist. And
Why not?
yeah.
Why not? So, everyone, this is Allison Burns, and she has the Allison EB. Well, let's have her talk about it. Allison, tell us a little backstory on you.
Oh my, that's a pretty broad question. I mean, dance is what I do and what I love. It's something I discovered young. I had the incredible opportunity to be exposed to all sorts of different things when I was a little girl growing up. You know, I tried the violin, I tried the piano, and this
Wow.
and that, and nothing really stuck the same way dance did. And then I studied it through high school. I went to an arts high school here in Ottawa. I studied it in university, and then have just continued to build my skills and practice the art form, and different things around it as well. Not only do I perform, but as you said at the beginning, I also choreograph. So I create dances and I educate, both in the way that I am a dance instructor, and I also run my own podcast about dance. And I love doing talks like this and post-show conversations, pre-show discussions, just anything I can to kind of demystify dance a little bit, because I practice mostly in contemporary dance and it can be an intimidating dance form. So I like to do outreach and audience engagement and education. Yeah, and then I produce as well and do administration, and basically, I wear all the hats and they all somehow relate back to dance, which is what I love to do.
This is amazing. I remember a girl I used to date. She was a ballet dancer, and I'm not saying this is annoying, but every so often she would be walking on her tiptoes. And one day I asked her, "Why are you walking on your tiptoes?" She says, "Because I used to be a ballet dancer." Are you doing like pure relay, what is it,
Pirouette?
pirouette? And she goes, "Yeah."
Right?
I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, wow. I should have worn my dance outfit." Well, that's interesting. So I guess I would figure that you don't actually do tiptoes in public, right?
um, I'm sure I have at one point, but
Yeah.
I did spend 14 years studying ballet. It's a
Nice.
wonderful foundational dance form, but I did drop it eventually, and yeah.
So tell us about you growing up. Um, why wasn't the violin or any other instrument? Why was it that you wanted to be a dancer? I've seen Nally McMaster and a bunch of them. They actually play the violin. They also dance to it as well. You could have done that as well.
I know. I saw this fantastic show where they had tap dancers and musicians performing at the same time, like violinists, and it was just absolutely incredible. There's a ton of strong relationship between music and dance for sure. For me, I there's a I am musically illiterate, I like to say. I have an inherent rhythm, which serves me very well for dancing. And I have a strong understanding of what I like and what I don't like. And I have a roster of composers who are very good at interpreting what it is that I'm asking for in music and creating that. But myself, I am not a musician. I am not a creator of music. So that it just, it was proved to me over and over again when I, tried to play that violin, tried to play that piano, and just couldn't really get very far. Recently, a few years ago, I started voice lessons as a way to try and strengthen my relationship with music through the use of my own body, which has always been historically my form of expression. And I did find some really useful and exciting insights through doing that. But I'm happy to sing for my baby. I am not going to do it on stage anytime soon. So I guess that's more of an explanation of why music didn't stick. And as far as dance, I think it really solidified for me as the choice I wanted to make moving forward in my life when I was in high school at Canterbury, that arts high school I mentioned. They took us to a lot of performances at the National Arts Centre here in Ottawa, and I just saw some incredible work that really showed me the possibilities of dance and how moving it can be. And I think it was through everything around that program, the teachers, the instruction that they gave us, the guest artists that they had come in, that just really inspired me to pursue it and made me realize, oh, this is something I can do. They also at that time had a program for all the graduating students where you got to choreograph a piece on your peers. And that was the first time really that I had that much artistic control over a dance work. And it was really enjoyable and it was really well received. And it was like programmed for a big show at the school. And I was like, oh, I think I might be able to do this. I think I might be good at this. So that was later in life, really, more at high school age, where I realized, yeah, I can pursue this. I can go and do post-secondary education in this and make a career out of it.
How do they teach you to become a choreographer? What is involved in that?
It's a great question. There are a lot of answers, I think. So the university program I took was at Concordia in Montreal, and we had a variety of instructors, and some of them approached it by giving us tools, like here are some creative exercises, here are some creative process ideas for how to generate movement vocabulary, because a lot of contemporary dance isn't necessarily about stringing together movements like your pirouette you mentioned earlier. You're not going to do ballet, it's codified, so you have a set vocabulary that you can work with, and you can say, okay, we're going to do 3 pirouettes and a pas de bourrée or whatever it might be, and string them all together and make it unison, make it in canon one after another, or make contrasting shapes on stage. There's a myriad of things that you can do once you have a vocabulary to work with. So in contemporary dance, it's a little broader. Modern dance is the rejection of ballet. So that happened first. Let's get rid of the ballet slippers. I'm going a little off script here, but I think it'll be worth it to get to the answer. You get rid of your shoes, you let your hair down, you go back to kind of like African dance influence, get down into the floor rather than trying to pull away in ballet. And then contemporary dance is less interested in rejecting ballet and more interested in seeing what else we can do with the dance form. So you see a lot of contemporary fusion that is not afraid to borrow from other dance forms. And you also see a lot of theater and visual art mixed in contemporary dance, and a lot of emphasis on a strong expression or a strong message that you're trying to get across, or a strong image that might be the motivation for the piece, even more so than the physicality of it. So with all that to say that there's a million different ways to approach how you're going to create a work. You don't necessarily need to start with knowing what kind of work it is that you're trying to create, but you do need to understand what methods you're using to get there. So maybe that means we're going to write some poetry and then turn those words into movement and make that a dance. Or maybe we're going to start with an image and we're going to try to create that image with a bunch of bodies on stage. Or who knows, you know, you can really be creative in trying to figure out how to get to your goal.
Have you ever created your own dance and tried to perform it and teach it, or is that impossible?
What do you mean by like my own choreography or my
Yeah,
own?
create your own choreographer, like your own dance, like your own.
Yeah,
It's Allison's dance.
for sure. Yeah, for sure. I do create a lot of choreography. It's one of my favorite ways of expressing my love of dance. And I have amassed quite a repertoire at this point of works. And sometimes I create on my own body. And sometimes my preference is to have other dancers work with me and help me to create the work. So it becomes a collaborative effort. Recently, what I did actually was I had that done in the fall, and then I went in to teach a workshop and they wanted a bit of my repertoire. So I went back and looked at that work and taught myself the work that I had created on those other dancers so that I could bring it to this new troupe and say, okay, here's the choreography. So that was quite a journey for me to really like dive into the work that I had created with other bodies. But yeah, and that was really fun too, to offer it to this new troupe and just share it with different people and see what it looks like on different bodies and in a different context. And it was really fun.
So does you have like this interpretive dance where they go like this, and you're supposed to figure out, well, this is me reaching for a tree, or this is me pulling an apple and eating it. What kind of dance? That's expressive dance. And is that something that's easy to do? Like, could you do a dance where you're walking down the street, getting into a car, driving to a gas station, putting gas in the car? Can you do an expressive dance on that one?
Sure. Sure. I guess the question is like, do you want to?
Yeah.
Like, what's the
How would
motivation?
you do the gas thing like this? That would be awesome. But yeah, can you tell us about your most recent performance and what did you learn from it? And if you didn't learn anything from it, what would you do differently if you had to do it again?
Oh my goodness. So performance would be different. These days I tend to perform in other people's work and choreograph mine and try to
Mhm.
keep those separate because I find I much prefer to be on the outside of my creative work. So I'm trying to think of I guess the last performance I did would have been a virtual performance that I did with my longtime collaborator, Kayla Milmine, who's a soprano
Okay.
saxophone player. So we're both improvising, and this is something that we started doing like over a decade ago now, but in person. So we've built a rapport together and we kind of understand how the other works. And then when the pandemic hit, we were meeting virtually because we don't live in the same city anymore. So it created a bit of an opportunity for us to collaborate again. And then we would do these periodic live performances, live streaming our improvisation together. And that's something I had so much fun with. Improvising as performance is one of my favorite things to do these days. When she and I started collaborating together, it was because we were both terrified of the of the idea of improvising as performance in front of people. It's very, if you can imagine, vulnerable and scary, and it's something that has now become one of my favorite things to do, as I said. And it's just a pleasure to do it with her because there's a lot of comfort there and a lot of mutual respect. And yeah, what did I learn from it? We learned certainly a lot about the virtual space and delays and camera angles and interesting things like that. And I don't know if this is a learning takeaway, but it was a great pleasure for both of us to have something to do, especially in the early days of the pandemic, where it felt like everything got put on hold for us contract artists who were like, oh, now what do we do? And where's our motivation to keep practicing and to keep honing our skills? Yeah.
Yeah. So I noticed that I saw on America's Got Talent, I believe, was a group of people that went behind this curtain, became silhouettes, and with their bodies, they created houses and carriages. And that is like, what kind of choreography is that? What kind of dance choreographer would they need for that?
You know what? There's probably a term for that kind of work that I don't know. But right off the bat, it sounds to me more in the circus category than the dance category. That whole like bending yourself into fantastic shapes and working in a troupe so connected like that.
Would you especially call gymnastics, the hobby horse? Would you consider that a kind of type of dance?
Again, I would put that in circus. I think.
No, but seriously, that's a dance, because I've seen how they perform. They stretch, and then they do the somersault, and then they use their hands for expression. I would consider that a type of dance.
Well, I mean, it's negotiable, and I'm not the holder of the categories for sure, but I do think that there's a precision to that kind of work that is very different. Well, I mean, when you're talking about ballet, there's a precision there too, and for sure there's a performative element and there's an artistry to both. So, I mean, where do you draw the line?
So if a rock star or someone like Britney Spears or whoever dances on stage, Madonna, what kind of choreography do they need? Would that be something from you, or would that be something from a pop artist choreographer? Like, I know you said they're not really all the same.
Totally. Yeah. There's a huge variety. And even amongst like the stars, there's a variety in the kind of styles that they perform. What's popular these days is a lot of urban dance. So you'll see people doing like top rock, like break dance, but standing break dance, which you call top rock, and whacking and other varieties of urban dance. And certainly some of them are doing some very contemporary stuff, some very modern influenced work. Yeah, I think it just depends on who they hire and what the vision is. But it's conceivable that a contemporary choreographer is involved. I think a lot of times they are. Yeah.
And if someone like me or someone in my family or a friend, whatever, wants to get into dancing and they contact you, their first class, what is the first thing you teach them to do?
So the dance classes that I offer are a bit out of the ordinary. I love teaching people with little to no dance experience. That's one of my favorite categories of student. I just find, again, with my like personal mandate to just demystify the art form and share it as broadly as possible, that's really where I thrive. So what I like to do is go right in with an improv based technique. And the reason I like to do that is because you can tailor it to your own level. It's a way to get straight into things without having to do a million pliés before you can feel the capacity to get to the next step. And it's very gentle. So it works, whatever your mobility like abilities are or your age, it should be comfortable, it should be pleasurable, and it should just, connect you with the music and with the sensation. I work with somatic dance, which in that context, what we mean when we say somatic is that you're moving from the sensation inside rather than the exterior form. So rather than me instructing you in what first position and second position look like and trying to correct your form into that shape, what I'm going to say is something like, you're going to imagine that you're holding a balloon and we're going to blow up the balloon and we're going to let the air out of the balloon slowly. And then we're going to do the same thing, but this time we're going to pop it. And the form is going to change. The texture of the movement is going to change and things like that. So using imagery and improvisation to inspire you to move differently than you've ever moved before, hopefully, while staying within your range of movement and your comfort.
That's pretty awesome. So, yeah. Now, while performing, was there like a dance performance you did not enjoy at all that you just said, I can't wait to get off the stage and go home?
Okay. I have to admit, before every performance, I'm like, why am I doing this? And the only thing that's happened over the years with experience is that the moment where that kicks in gets closer to when I get on stage. So it's a shorter little moment of fear later in my career, but it's always there of like, oh, why did I sign up for this? I always bite off more than I can chew, or I feel like I do. But if there's a performance, I think perhaps a more satisfying answer is there was a performance once where I wasn't supposed to perform at all. Mm-hmm. I was on tour with a group producing the show, and one of the performers was injured while we'd already shipped everybody out west. And the solution we came up with was to rejig things a little bit. I taught the performer who was out how to call the cues for the lights and sound, and they taught their part, which was a very big part, to one of the minor dancers, and then I took the minor dancer's role. And it was a very stressful run. I think we had 6 shows, and it was very difficult.
Wow.
Like 2 weeks to figure things out, and so that was no fun.
I can imagine.
Yeah. So have a understudy if your show's that big.
So what about stretching before a performance or before you need to dance? What kind of stretches? Is it yoga or is it regular stretches, or what needs to be stretched? Mm-hmm. And what's more important, the legs, the arms?
So I would argue that warming up is important, and that doesn't necessarily involve stretching. It depends on the work that you're doing. But I wouldn't dive right into stretching. I would make sure that everything in the body is warm, make sure that I'm breathing properly. I would, if it's depending on the type of performance, I would work with my cast to make sure that we have a connection together so that we are feeling comfortable sharing the space and we're aware of each other. And we're vibing, and we can do that with various exercises. And when I'm not in a work too, I like to do that with my cast just to get them ready to perform together. Working on my focus, projecting my self out into the audience. And then if I'm getting down to good stretches, I think it depends on, again, the work that I'm doing and that I'm performing. I like to stretch out my back, primarily doing roll-ups and roll-downs and stretching side to side, get my spine nice and fluid and ready to go. I think that would be my primary focus.
Oh, that's cool. So when you're performing, my cat is trying to pull my microphone cable out. I'm trying to keep her away from the camera here, because or else we'll be talking to you and thinking, hey, can cats dance?
Absolutely.
Yes. So when you're performing in a group on stage, can you tell me, for one thing, how many hours or day per week do you spend practicing? And is being in sync important? If you're dancing with another or a bunch of others, mentioning a group?
Yeah, for sure. For sure, dancing in sync is important. And I think there's a difference between I mean, if you're going for unison of being the same, then for sure that's important too. But even if you're not in unison, it's important uh, to have a strong relationship between the bodies on stage. So we like to say from Laban that dance is using the body in space and time with relationship and energy. So having those strong relationships is like at the core of what dance is. So if you're on stage and you're disconnected with the cast and you're, first of all, you could like bump into each other, or you could just be, you could have some people with different energy levels than others, and it just, you could lose some of that magic if you're not really connected with your castmates. So for sure, that's important to be in sync with them. That was a combo question though, and I can't remember.
Yeah, that's fine. I love the answer, but I'm always curious about someone who is the bad apple in the group. And I don't want to do it this way, Allison. Have you ever how bad is your disagreement with another performer to the point where they walk out or you walk out, or you just, I'm not going to work with them. Sorry.
Asking the hard questions, Chris.
Sorry, I should have prepared you for that.
No, it's good. It's good. I mean, I think I've learned a lot about collaboration over the years, and I've certainly learned the importance of understanding roles from the get-go, just like without, so that before there's any bad blood, you can be like, this is the hierarchy, this is who has veto power, this is how this works, which is really helpful. But of course, it's hard when you're working with friends or colleagues and tensions happen and somebody's not getting what they need out of the arrangement. Yeah, that can be challenging for sure.
Yeah, there's like lots of disagreements everywhere, and it's some like how you would overcome it. I get this things where you, if you're the boss, take a leave of absence or something. As long as nobody's hurt on stage, it's sort of like, okay, well, you're not going to work here because you're not in sync. You have these problems. Or you sit down with them and say, okay, tell me what your ideas are. Maybe we can, compromise or whatever. Because I've seen a lot of dances and I'm thinking, wow, that's amazing. That must be Allison's work. No, just kidding. Yes. So if let's say you do a dance routine and you forget a move, what do you do?
Oh, easy. You fake it. You improv.
I was thinking that. I was thinking, I bet she fakes it. Yeah.
I don't think that's ever happened though. I realize now what the combo question was. You were also asking about timing. And the answer, I think, is like as much time as you can get. Then there are like all the, the questions of the availability of the performers, the availability of the space, the money available for the project. These parameters decide how much time you have to actually rehearse together. But typically, unless you're doing like a specific creative process to create an unfinished work, in which case you're probably changing things up into the last minute, there's usually time built into the process to really get the piece down and rehearse. So people tend to be very confident once you get to the final performance, or the first performance, let's hope. But something I actually heard about singers, which I think applies here in the rehearsal process, is once you get to a high level, it's not about the technique of it anymore. It's about the expression of it, right? So once you've settled into what the dance is and what the piece is, then you're not concerned all the time about like, okay, right foot, and then I got to turn, and then my arm goes up. You just have the muscle memory. You're just moving through it. But at the same time, you're thinking about your relationship with the other people on stage. You're thinking about the audience. You're thinking about how you're projecting. You're thinking about the artistry of the performance.
Yes, I see. It's like dance is quite an art. I mean, I've seen many dances, and we're going to get into those many dances and your critique of each one. I have learned, Hannah, I have learned the tango. Oh, that's a good one. I'll tell you one thing. I thought that would be easy watching the one that dance scene called Tango Marine on Rent. I thought that was easy to do, but I realized that when you learn it, it's not easy to do. You're tired. You go home to bed, and you're like going, "Whoa!" But let's say you have a let's say you are tired after performance
Mm-hmm.
and you got still 15 minutes to go. Do you just do it until you can't do it anymore? Or do you just, how do you gain your strength? What are your strengths for that?
Well, I think if you're in performance, there's adrenaline doing most of the work.
Yeah.
I was just thinking before you finished your question, I was thinking about at the end of a show, what do you do? And it's like you go out for dinner. Like you're not ready to go to bed. Like you want to hang out with the audience or with your
Yeah.
castmates. Like it's exciting. Your adrenaline's pumping. So
Yeah. I can
yeah.
imagine you reaching for a menu.
Yeah, and you're starving. You're starving and you're full of energy. So I don't know. I've never encountered that problem of being too exhausted to continue. You just, fired
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
Yes. So let's say a dancer gets injured and you had to take their spot in performance. How would explain your process for preparing for that?
Well, thankfully I have that experience.
Okay.
And yeah, we just had like an intensive rehearsal process of like going into the studio for several hours a day, every day. And I do remember at the end of those rehearsals lying on the ground being like, oh no, I'm so tired. My body is so sore.
Yeah.
Because we went from not preparing for this to preparing for it full throttle. Yeah, and it was a lot, and to try and obtain that same level of comfort in the performance, you have to do it over and over and over again in a short period of time, and it can be awful.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
also, like, having to deal with stress, and you go home and you got your family there and you're like, oh, I can't do this. Can you please take care of that?
Well, in this circumstance, we were already on tour, so we didn't have our families
Oh,
around. We didn't have our
okay.
other distractions. We could just really focus on the task at hand.
Yeah.
So, and which actually isn't a bad thing. I've done a few residencies, and the residencies where they are intensive, they're 2-3 weeks long in a separate city that I don't live in, have been really fruitful for me. I think the idea of just kind of putting everything aside and focusing on the project has been really, really beneficial.
Yeah, that's interesting. I distress everywhere and coming home and you're tired and it's like you got like I got a stress for work and then I have a podcast an hour later and I'm like, should I cancel it or just deal with it? Hi. And then meanwhile, deep down inside, I thought, oh, I'm so tired.
I
Yeah.
have to say this for me right now, especially with an almost 11-month-old, is much more related to parenthood, much more relatable to my parenting right now, where I'm like, I'm so tired, but I just have to keep going.
I love it. I love your attitude. What is your biggest challenge you face as a dancer in your career?
Oh, there are a lot, unfortunately. I feel like there are a lot of challenges. I think this is true for a lot of arts, though, not just dance. Um, but of course, rejection. There is plenty of rejection. I apply to a lot of creation opportunities, performance opportunities, grants, and there's a lot more no's than there are yeses, which makes the yeses very sweet, but can be quite discouraging when you invest so much time. Yeah, balancing the books, is difficult, which is how you end up with a lot of dance artists who wear several hats. Um, and I think, the one that I've been mentioning and facing head on is um, the misunderstanding about dance, or the fear of dance, maybe is more appropriate. Like I meet a lot of people who are excited about what I do, but immediately follow up with that they have no idea about any of that, and I just want to be able to empower people to have some idea about that, and it's open to interpretation a lot of the time, and We love our audiences, you know, however into the world they are, we welcome them. So I wish to broaden people's relationship with dance. Yeah, and I find that is a challenge.
Is there a retirement age for dancers? Because I know we have a Canadian dancer named Karen Kane, and she recently reached retirement. I think you might know her because she's well, she used to be a dancer, but she kind of claimed that I'm retiring from dancing, and I'm like, what? Is there like an actual retirement age, or is someone in their 90s can still dance?
Oh, for sure, you could still dance. Yeah, Karen Kane is a ballet icon. She was an amazing principal dancer, and then later became an artistic director and did all sorts of things in the dance world. I think I want to say, especially in contemporary dance, but I'm sure it happens in other forms as well, that mature dancers are doing incredible things. And it's really a pleasure to see. I recently saw a show at the NAC with kind of first and second generation street dancers, like b-boys and girls, and it was phenomenal. And they're not doing the same tricks that the young bucks are doing, but their presence and the history that their bodies have and made on stage was just incredible to watch. There is something, I mean, the more you do anything, right, the stronger you become, the stronger you get. And that is something that is undeniable when you see a mature dancer on stage.
That's awesome. We have someone wants to say hi to you.
Hi.
Hi,
Hi,
Catherine. Nice to meet you.
Thanks for being here.
Thank you. So actually, how has dancing inspired you?
How hasn't it? I find practicing dance is a way for me to it's a therapy in a way. There is the way of moving my body, which allows me pleasure and sensation and feeling, and I can move through things emotionally and physically at the same time. When I'm a spectator for a really excellent dance show, I feel very opened up. I feel very, inspired for sure. I feel an incredible amount of excitement about humanity and the things that we can accomplish and do and the beauty that we can create and the things that we can share with one another. And in sharing as an educator, my love of the art form, I feel a lot of excitement when I get to bring other people joy. So yeah, there's plenty of ways.
That's pretty cool. So what do you consider to be the most important traits as a dancer?
Versatility is very important. Especially these days, people are doing a lot of practicing different art forms, which makes for really interesting and exciting dancers to work with. You mentioned tango, and actually recently I've been studying ballroom dancing myself.
Nice.
And it's so cool and yes, difficult, and I think especially difficult on the leads. So if that's the role you were in, well, hats off. That is a hard role to fill. Something else, though, I would say is just actually this also relates back to your earlier question about collaborating, but just being easy to work with. You know, there are dancers that I've worked with that are just so communicative and they put in the effort. You know, they show up on time, they communicate, and they answer my emails. just being easy to work with goes so far and makes the process so pleasurable. And I will, keep returning to those artists because there are a gazillion highly talented dancers. So there are, little ways that you can put yourself out above the rest, and, being versatile and being easy to work with are good.
Well, tell me about your choreographer you admire the most. Mine was Rudolf Nureyev. I know my mother and I love Rudolf Nureyev, and we Karen Kane is another one, and we've seen Swan Lake so many times. So what choreographer do you admire the most?
I think the easy answer for me, I guess, is Pina Bausch, who is a German dance theater choreographer. They recently created, recently, it's been years now, Wim Wenders created a kind of documentary style movie about her life in 3D. It was more about her work than about her life. The story I heard is that she wasn't interested in it being about her. She wanted it to be about the work. And so they just staged a bunch of her really famous works in these beautiful settings and interviewed a bunch of the members of her company. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful film. Anyway, she just creates this work that I think is like been untouched in terms of no one has been able to master that dance theater blend quite the way that she has, and a lot of people try, because it's just magic what she has done with her career, with her work. She's passed since, but yeah, an incredible artist.
I love that answer. So what is the favorite style of dance and why?
I mean, contemporary is what I practice, is what I love. It's definitely a very broad category, as I hope I've driven home at this point in the conversation. But yeah, I think the kind of work that I gravitate towards as a viewer and as a creator tends to have, the influence of my ballet background or other highly technical dance forms. Another answer to the previous question, which also leads into this one, is Jiri Kilian of the Netherlands Dance Theater is another choreographer that I respect a lot, just who works, classically, like very, very highly trained dancers. Crystal Pite, a Canadian choreographer who works with her own company, Kid Pivot. So they practice in their own way, but they all have really highly technical dance skills. Those kinds of artists that are out of the box, doing some strange contemporary stuff, but like really highly physically skilled.
Yeah, okay. So I'm going to mention some choreographers here, and you let me know if you've heard of them. Kyle Hanagami.
No.
Martha Graham.
Oh, of course. Yes, one of the pioneers of modern dance.
Yes. Matt Stefanina.
No.
Merce Cunningham.
Yes, another pioneer of contemporary dance or of modern dance. If you his work has highly influenced a lot of contemporary work since.
Yeah, and Twyla Tharp.
Yes. Twyla Tharp actually wrote an incredible book called The Creative Habit, which I highly recommend to anyone in any creative pursuit, or who says, oh, I'm not a creative person, but has a desire to be. It's a really accessible way of breaking down a practice of creativity, and it's really wonderful.
Well, here's one that I haven't heard in a while, but I know he passed away some years ago. Alvin Ailey.
Alvin Ailey, yes, New York choreographer. Yeah. Again, that falls into the category of like highly technical and contemporary. Yeah, beautiful, beautiful work.
Just so you know, I did my homework.
Yeah, absolutely, you did.
Here's another one, George Balanchine.
Balanchine, yeah, for sure.
Wade Robson.
Way Robson, no, I don't know.
Paul Taylor, he just passed away.
Yeah.
There's so many here. Wow, look at that. Wow, Catherine Dunham. Bob Fosse is another one. That's another one I totally forgot about. Bob Fosse.
Yeah, Fosse, Broadway business. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm looking so forward to dancing the tango. I love that. That's my favorite dance. Now let's get into dances.
Okay.
Thinking, okay, we have 9 dances here. I want you to give me a critique of them,
A
and we'll go to
critique.
questions because I know you said you had to leave at 1, I think. Sorry, not
Oh,
1, 3.
correct. Yeah, exactly.
Sorry. Oh, that's right.
No
I
worries.
just, yeah. Ballet.
Ballet. Ballet is great. As I said, it's a like incredibly helpful foundational dance. For not just dance, I mean, football players do ballet, right? It's an incredible like physical practice for a lot of people.
Well, Fred Flintstone does that when he went and did bowling, I think. But
There
I'm
you
thinking,
go.
why do you have to learn ballet to play bowl? Like, doesn't make any sense.
Um, I mean, I don't know much about football to be able to answer that question properly, but I mean, ballet is like very strengthening. It creates very long, lean, strong muscles and good posture. And yeah.
Okay, here's another dance for you. You just mentioned this earlier about tango, ballroom dancing. What do you think of that one?
Ballroom dancing. Yeah, it's so pleasurable. I mean, once you're getting into partner dancing, it's all like a whole other ball game because you have to like be really connected with your partner and you have to either follow properly or lead properly depending on the role that you're in. Um, yeah, and it can be a lot of fun and the relationship with the music is inherently really strong and yeah, I'm not sure how to critique a dance style, but it's fun.
These, you might have heard a lot of these, I think, maybe, but I have never heard. What's contemporary dancing?
So contemporary is what I practice and what I enjoy. So that contemporary, as I was saying before, is kind of like the broad spectrum of postmodern dance that incorporates often a lot of other styles and a lot of other art forms, and usually comes with like a really strong message or theme.
Okay, hip hop. What do you think of that dance? I
Hip hop
like
is fun.
how
Yeah.
you do this. Like, is that really a dance? That's sort of like scaring your kid. Yeah.
Yeah, hip hop is great. Hip hop is I did a lot of dance education in schools with a company called Love to Groove, and they harness the power of hip hop because hip hop is very cool. And we were talking before about pop stars, and I think that a lot of the time that's hip hop based is kind of the work that they're doing there. Hip hop is the main urban dance. Yeah, it's great. It's really fun. You know you can use really popular music and do hip hop, or you can do more contemporary hip hop, like with b-boyism, that show at the NAC with the ancestral b-boys I was talking about earlier.
Well, Allison, the most hardest, if you think tango is hard, the most hardest dance I think is the jazz dancing. What do you think of that one?
Yeah, jazz is hard. So that's another one for the pop
Yeah.
stars for music videos and things like that. And Broadway, you see a lot of, Bob Fosse is jazzy. Jazz is if you're getting to like the core of jazz, like decidedly jazz dance works in Calgary. It's like pure jazz, which is really has its roots, as a lot of dance forms do, in like African dance styles, which again is like down to the earth. You're using your hips a lot. You're working with the beats of the music. Yeah.
Well, the one thing I forgot to do is close the balcony. Can you hear all that noise out there?
There's a bit of
Garbage
chat,
truck, just garbage,
but
just
that's
what's
it.
going on? It's like, no, I like it when I do a podcast and everything's silent around me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, oh, my favorite, yes. Okay. Uh, what's his name? Michael. I can't remember, but he lot of tap dancing. There's the tap dogs, and then you have the famous tap dancer, Michael something. Oh man, I forgot about him. Tap dancing.
Tap dancing. Tap dancing is cool. Yeah. I mean, you have to have a really strong rhythm and strong ankles. But I think you also develop strong ankles through doing it. And you have to have the right surface. I've seen tap dancers travel around before with their own little, 2x2 floor so that they don't ruin their apartment's floor or the performance space floor. because they're really slamming with their shoes down on there. Yeah, it's fabulous, fabulous. High level tap dance is very impressive.
Yeah, is it Michael? Not Michael. Is it Michael Ridgely? No, not Michael. Anyway, he's a famous tap dancer. But I really want to be like take some tap dancing because you know. Hey, I want a raise. I'll keep doing this till I get my raise. Oh, folk dancing. What do you think of folk dancing?
So, folk dancing, like just because I think when you say folk dancing, I think of like any kind of like folk dance of any kind of culture. Like when I was studying ballet, we would do for our Royal Academy of Dance exams, we would study character dancing, which would be folk dancing from Russia or Hungary or wherever else. And it was just like a little sprinkling of something different. Usually wear heels and have a big skirt and do these heel clicks. Yeah, I mean, I know there's like Quebecois folk dance, which is very different, soft shoe kind of folk dance. And then I went to Bermuda and I got to see the folk dance of the Bermudians. And there's I think that's a pretty broad category as well. And I think it's wonderful. And I think in the same way that like jazz and hip hop have these roots that, well, especially with jazz, you don't even see them anymore, where I think it's important to go and educate and dabble in folk dance and the kind of root sources of these dance styles to understand them better. And also in this world where we're trying to right now decolonize different aspects of our culture, I think it's really important also to decolonize our dance practice and understand where we got these moves from and where we got this practice from.
Yeah, the last one, oh, my favorite. Okay, I've been so obsessed with this type of dancing that I want to learn this, even though like there is a little bit of Irish, like we did DNA tests and found a little bit of Irish in us. Irish dancing.
Yeah, like Highland dancing, or is that Scottish? I can't remember.
Irish dancing, where you have to lift up the leg, and for some reason you have to keep your arms at your side. I have no idea why they do that, but is there a reason for that?
I don't know. I didn't study that myself, but yeah, I can picture you've got your kilt on and you're lots of slamming the floor with your feet. Yeah.
What kind of choreographer are you? Just kidding. Yeah, I love Irish dancing.
Great choreographer.
Yeah. So now I realize your time, so we're going to try to get into some Q&A.
Cool.
All right. So one thing is we want it from Catherine Lowe has a question. What is the difference for you between dancing live on stage versus dancing for a film or dance video?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, for a film or a video, you can do multiple takes. You can do multiple sessions. So you're trying to do your best and you're trying to get the single cut and all that. But with the stage, there is no alternative. Like there is just the one go, and you're in, you're out, you're done. So I think that's a big difference in terms of headspace and pressure. It's different. Yeah.
And with live dancing, that if like there's no double take, like in film, you just edit it.
Yeah.
So you have to do like a 5-minute. I saw a video where the guy was doing a dance routine and he said, I had to do it like 50, 60 times. And it's like the reason why they chose the last one, because you're dancing and you keep dancing the same routine. You get so tired that you start dancing and all that adrenaline and just your attitude and how tired you are. They say that's the best when you're feeling that way. Right?
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you, Catherine. That is an excellent question. So it's another question we have from our audience. What do you like to do when you're not dancing?
I don't understand the question. Well, as I mentioned earlier, I have an almost 11-month-old boy, so there's parenting is a big part of my life right now. And when I'm not dancing, I am still doing a lot of things around dance, like running my own dance podcast or planning future projects. There's so much coordination too when you're creating a piece, so things like that. I'm also into gardening these days and cooking and all that kind of domestic stuff. I love to read. Audiobooks have been my life since my baby was born. It's been super helpful to be able to listen to a book rather than sit down and read one. Yeah.
Yeah. Another question is from Joni Farran. And before we show that question, everyone just hit the subscribe button for more content, for more excellent artists, musicians we have on our show. They just keep getting better and better, and can't do any better than Allison Allison Burns. So make sure you go to Dirty Feet Podcast, listen to her. Oh, she's got some really wonderful dancers on there. And sometimes she has a co-host, sometimes she doesn't, but she's very funny. And I think you're gonna love it. So let's show Joanne, Joni Joanne. What would be your dream venue, outdoor space to shoot a dance video?
Oh my goodness, good question, Joanny. I don't know. I haven't dared to dream yet. What would be your dream venue or outdoor space to shoot a dance video? Oof. Man, I feel like any answer I come up with is like not going to be grand enough for that question. But right now I'm going to say am I going to say that? The Rocky Mountains. Let's do that. Go to Lake Louise or Jasper. Have the beautiful mountains in the background. Do some shoots up there. Do some shoots by the water. Yeah, I think that would be absolutely incredible.
Yeah, if you go to Allison's YouTube channel, she does some dances there, and it's really good. And there's one she does outside, but where you're like, picture you showed me a low level camera, and it shows you doing a move. I don't know whether you're cutting, pruning your hedges, whatever, but yeah. Anything can be a dance. I guess just standing there like a statue, like Silver Elvis, I guess he's considered doing a dance because he always goes like this with his guitar, and it's like anything but a dance. Yeah, looks like we're running out of time, everyone. Final questions bring in the final questions for Allison to respond to. We'll just ask you this one question here. Well, we got a lot of them here. Oh my goodness. Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Ooh. Oh, that's hard. Where do I see myself in 5 years? I think probably just doing more of the same, teaching more workshops, creating more dance videos, doing more stage productions. I think the stage production thing has been on hold for a while, and I've really shifted my focus onto creating dance videos, which has been a real pleasure to do. And I do want to continue that practice regardless of the fact that things are opening up again, because I find there's a lot of value in having an artifact after a creative process. And then there's a different relationship you can have with the camera in terms of intimacy and detail with your dance. But I also do want to continue a stage practice because there is something about live performance that it's just unmatched with these other mediums. So I definitely want to get back to creating in studio. I want to get back to touring, small but mighty tours with proper infrastructure. Yeah.
Well, we can't wait for more dance videos on your YouTube channel, which is provided in the description. And you make sure you listen to Dirty Feet Podcast, which I think is a wonderful name for a podcast, because I know when you dance, your feet get dirty. You have those, you have different dancing shoes. But yeah, not that I like to dance without shoes, but I noted we had someone who played the dulcimer said that they usually play without shoes on. It sort of helps them. But yeah, well, that's great, Allison. I really appreciate you being on our podcast. And we are going to say goodbye. And you just suddenly froze there. So, Allison, oh, you froze. Okay, well, if you hear this, just just know that you're saying goodbye, and we will end this. Yeah. Okay, so she looks like that's it for her. Okay, everyone, we're going to end this stream, and we shall have a just have a wonderful week, wonderful weekend, and take care, everyone. Oh, there you are. What happened?
I don't know. Everything went dark.
Yeah, I know. Oh, now that one that you were in just suddenly disappeared. There were actually two of you on the screen at once. I would have asked that you took that song "Dancing with Myself" by Billy Idol seriously. Because you appeared again, you were still there, and then suddenly you disappeared. But anyway, so we're just about to say goodbye. And thank you, Allison, for joining us on the stage. Everyone, we're not taking any more questions because I know Allison is busy with a little child as well. So Allison, thank you for taking this time, and thank you for being a wonderful guest and our first choreographer. Excellent.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Chris.
You're very welcome. So let's end this, and just we'll stay behind. I want to talk to you for 1 minute.
Sounds good.